Welcome, dear listener. Tonight we step into a world both familiar and estranged, a place where the air is heavy with silence, where every color and gesture has been redefined, and where a single garment can dictate a woman's entire existence. This is Gilead, a society built on fear, ritual, and control, and at the center of it a woman known only as Offred, draped in crimson. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Novel Whisper Official, and comment below the title of the novel you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. The story opens with the echo of footsteps in a gymnasium. Once this was a place of laughter, squeaking shoes on polished wood, a sanctuary for teenage games. Now it has been stripped of innocence. Women sleep in rows on army cots under the watchful eyes of aunts, older women who enforce obedience. The past lingers like ghosts, basketball hoops still hanging, faded lines marking the floor, reminders of freedom lost. Yet the rules are clear. Whispering is forbidden, touching is forbidden, even glances are dangerous. The women wear red dresses, heavy and conspicuous. A white-winged bonnet shields their faces from view, reducing them to silent silhouettes. The crimson marks them as handmaids, vessels for reproduction in a society where infertility has reached a crisis point. Their bodies are not their own. They are state property, walking wombs assigned to commanders, the powerful men who rule Gilead. Offred, our guide, moves cautiously through this oppressive reality. She has learned to lower her eyes, to measure each step with precision. Even language has become a weapon here. Simple greetings are stripped of warmth and turned into ritual phrases. "Blessed be the fruit," one handmaid says to another. The reply, "May the Lord open." These words sound like faith, but they function as chains. The landscape outside the commander's compound reflects the same rigid order. Guardians with rifles stand on every corner, their faces young yet hardened, eyes sharp with suspicion. A wall looms nearby, a grotesque display where bodies hang. Traitors, criminals, dissenters. Each corpse marked with symbols that spell out their supposed sins. Women passing by do not scream, do not look away. They walk faster, skirts brushing the pavement, hearts pounding. Offred has trained herself to feel nothing because in Gilead feeling is dangerous. Inside the commander's house, the silence deepens. Serena Joy, the wife, rules the household with an icy presence, her blue gown a mirror of cold authority. Martha's older women in green tend to cooking and cleaning, moving with weary precision. Offred exists among them like a shadow, present but untouchable, her only purpose to conceive a child. She observes every detail. The smell of furniture polish, the gleam of polished wood, the muted ticking of clocks. Because in a world stripped of choice, even the smallest details become anchors of sanity. But under the surface of her careful obedience, memories stir. She remembers another life. Jeans and sneakers, mornings with her daughter, the warmth of her husband Luke's hand. She remembers walking freely in supermarkets, not flanked by guards, not identified by color. These fragments rise unbidden, slipping into her consciousness like forbidden dreams. And yet she cannot linger on them for long. To survive, she must stay present in this suffocating reality. Each day begins with ritual. Shopping trips with another handmaid, Offred, are conducted in silence until ritual greetings permit brief whispered exchanges. The shops no longer carry words on their signs. Only pictures. A loaf of bread painted on a bakery door, a slab of meat for the butcher. Reading is forbidden for women. Letters themselves are dangerous, knowledge stripped away to ensure control. At night, in her small room with its single locked door and barred window, Offred lies awake. The room is bare, intentionally stripped of anything sharp, anything she could use to escape in a final act of defiance. Even the ceiling light has been tampered with. No rope could ever be tied there. She studies the cracks in the plaster, the shadows cast by the moonlight. She listens for footsteps in the hallway, for the soft creak of the floorboards. Every sound carries meaning in a house where silence is law. And yet, despite the suffocating control, there is something beneath the surface. A restlessness, a hunger for more than obedience. The crimson robe may conceal her, but inside, Offred remembers who she was, and the fragments of that identity flicker like embers refusing to die. The world of Gilead has been meticulously built to extinguish those embers, to ensure silence, obedience, and ritual replace love, laughter, and freedom. But the human spirit resists, even if only in secret thoughts, in stolen glances, in silent yearning. Offred has not yet spoken her full story, but in her quiet defiance, in her ability to remember, she begins to hint that there is more than just crimson silence in her life. There is something unspoken, a possibility, however faint, that she might endure, and that endurance itself might be rebellion. Morning arrives with a cold clarity. The air feels sharp, the kind that bites at the skin, and yet inside the commander's house, the atmosphere is not shaped by weather but by tension. Offred moves carefully down the polished hallways, every step echoing too loudly, as if her presence itself is a disruption. She knows her place here, but the boundaries shift like shadows depending on who is watching. The commander's house is a structure of hierarchy carved into daily life. At the top sits the commander, distant yet omnipresent, his presence felt even when he is away. His wife, Serena Joy, occupies the rooms with brittle authority, her eyes sharp, her voice edged with years of disappointment. Her blue gown is meant to symbolize serenity, but there is no serenity in her movements. She knits endlessly, her needles clicking like the measure of time, a rhythm that tightens the silence in every room. The Marthas, older women in green, glide through the household with weary competence. They manage the kitchen, the cleaning, the small domestic details that keep the commander's home in order. They do not speak to Offred unless required, and when they do, their voices carry the stiffness of resentment. To them, she is both necessary and resented, a reminder that their home has failed to produce life, that the wife cannot bear children, that Offred's very presence exposes their deficiency. Offred is left suspended between them all. She is not quite part of the household, yet she is indispensable to it. She moves like an object set on a shelf, useful when needed, invisible otherwise. The rules are unspoken but clear. She is to stay in her room, take her walks when permitted, attend the rituals without complaint. She is to sit quietly when the wife summons her, to fold her hands, to lower her eyes. At meals, the silence is suffocating. Offred sits with the others, tasting food that feels flavorless despite the care of its preparation. The conversations skirt around her, never including her. Serena Joy often avoids looking at her at all, as if refusing to acknowledge the body that may one day produce a child in her place. When she does speak, her voice is cold, practical, stripped of warmth. A question about Offred's health, a clipped instruction, nothing more. The commander himself remains a shadow in the background. Offred sees him from a distance, the way his shoes sound on the wooden floors, the faint smell of cologne, the posture of authority he carries effortlessly. But he is not a man she is allowed to know. To her, he is both everything and nothing. The figure who dictates her role, yet whose face is a blur of distance. His presence fills the house like a storm cloud that never breaks. Even in her room, Offred feels his authority pressing in. The space is designed to remind her of her place. The window is small, the walls bare. The bedspread is plain, the furniture simple. No mirrors, no ornaments, nothing that might suggest individuality. Even the Bible, the supposed cornerstone of Gilead, is forbidden to her. Only the commander may read it aloud, his voice turning scripture into weaponized law. But Offred is not without inner life. She watches, she listens, she catalogues details in silence. She notices the way Serena's hands tremble sometimes when knitting, the faint lines of bitterness etched deeper with each passing day. She notices the Marthas whispering in the kitchen, their voices dropping to murmurs whenever she passes. She notices the small shifts in the commander's tone when he speaks, as if behind the rehearsed authority there might linger something human, something uncertain. And in the stillness of her evenings, when she lies awake in her narrow bed, she lets her thoughts wander to forbidden places. She remembers laughter. She remembers her daughter's small hand wrapped in her own. She remembers Luke's face, his voice. These memories are dangerous. They remind her that she is more than what Gilead says she is. Yet she clings to them quietly, secretly, because they are all she has. The household feels like a stage, each figure locked in their role. The wife, bitter and desperate. The Marthas, silent laborers. The commander, a distant master. And Offred, the vessel, the red silhouette moving silently between them. Each ritual, each rule, each watchful glance builds a tension that never releases. The commander's house is both sanctuary and prison. Within its walls she is shielded from the harsher punishments of Gilead, yet it is also here that her body is claimed, her future dictated, her identity stripped. She breathes the air of the house as one might breathe through glass, never fully, always aware of the barrier. And still, beneath all the rituals and silences, a question lingers. How long can she endure living as a ghost within these walls, visible only when her usefulness is required? The present world presses in on Offred with suffocating weight, but memory is sly. It creeps through the cracks of her enforced silence, flooding her mind with the warmth of a past life that feels both near and impossibly distant. These recollections arrive unbidden, like fragments of a dream. Luke's laugh echoing in her ears, her daughter's small body curled against her chest, the freedom of walking city streets without fear. Once she had a name of her own, not the label of Fred that chains her to the commander's ownership. She had jeans and t-shirts, a job, friends, and mornings where coffee steamed in her hands without consequence. She remembers sitting in kitchens filled with light, the sound of radios playing songs without censorship, newspapers filled with headlines that criticized leaders openly. That world was flawed, yes, but it was free. The descent into Gilead was not sudden, but creeping, like water rising without notice until the streets are drowned. First, the news spoke of environmental collapse, plunging birth rates and unrest. Then came laws that seemed temporary, necessary measures for safety. Women's bank accounts were frozen. Jobs were stripped away with official efficiency. The language was bureaucratic, but its impact was personal and brutal. Overnight, she had nothing. She remembers standing in line at the store when her bank card was refused. The man behind the counter shrugged, uninterested. Later, she learned all women's access had been revoked, funds transferred to husbands or male relatives. Independence dissolved in a moment. She called Luke, panic rising in her voice, but he told her gently to stay calm, that they would manage. And for a while they did, or tried to. Then came the raids. Roads were closed, checkpoints established. The state's language shifted into scripture-tinged commands, policies wrapped in the voice of divine authority. Women were stripped of rights not in the name of politics, but in the name of faith, making defiance seem not only illegal but sinful. And when religion is used as law, rebellion is painted as damnation. She remembers trying to escape. One night, she and Luke packed hurried bags, hearts pounding as they buckled their daughter into the back seat. They drove through forest roads, breath held at every checkpoint, praying not to be stopped. But hope was fragile. The borders closed faster than they could run. Guards dragged them out. Luke's fate became a blur. Was he shot, captured alive somewhere? She does not know. Her daughter was ripped from her arms, her cries swallowed by uniforms and guns. That sound, her child's terrified wail, remains etched in Offred's soul like a scar. Those memories live within her even as she walks obediently through Gilead's streets. The contrast between then and now is a wound she cannot close. Where once there were parks filled with strollers, there are now checkpoints. Where once there were libraries, there are now guarded compounds. Where once there was laughter, there is ritual silence. The new world justifies itself through ceremony and scripture. Aunts lecture the handmaids with twisted passages, their voices sharp as whips. Women who disobey are punished publicly, a spectacle designed to erase any thought of rebellion. Each act of cruelty is disguised as mercy, each loss reframed as necessity. And yet Offred clings to the fragments of her old self. Even her forbidden thoughts are acts of rebellion. Remembering Luke's warm hand on hers, the softness of her child's hair, the ordinary chaos of grocery shopping, these memories refuse to bow to Gilead's demands. They pulse within her like hidden fire. She knows others carry these ghosts too. During rare, hushed moments with other handmaids, glances are exchanged that speak of lives once lived. They are not just red-robed vessels. They are women who had names, loves, choices. The state can strip away clothing, speech, and freedom, but the past lingers, haunting and dangerous. Every memory is a reminder of what was stolen, and every reminder is a seed of defiance, buried deep in silence, waiting for the smallest crack to push through. The house grows tense as night approaches. Tonight is ceremony night. It is not a celebration, not a moment of intimacy, but a ritual scripted by the state, disguised as holy duty. Offred moves through the motions with the precision of someone who knows that even hesitation could invite punishment. The room is dim, the air heavy. Serena Joy sits upright on the bed, her blue gown stretched tight, her face carved with bitterness. She holds her Bible as if it were both shield and weapon. Offred kneels at her feet, clothed in crimson bonnet shading her face. She feels the cold fabric of Serena's body beneath her cheek as the wife places her legs around her. A staged embrace meant to symbolize surrogate motherhood. It is an embrace stripped of warmth, rigid and suffocating, a performance of faith. The commander enters. His steps are measured, solemn, but beneath the ritual lies a truth everyone knows. This is not a union of love, not a family's act of creation. It is state-sanctioned possession. He reads from Scripture, the verses twisted into justification. Ancient words about Rachel, Bilhah, and bearing children in another woman's name become the foundation for this living theater of control. Then, without intimacy or tenderness, the ceremony begins. Offred lies still, her mind pulling away from her body, escaping into silence. She has learned to retreat, to make her thoughts wander elsewhere while her body performs its role. To resist would be madness. To cry would be rebellion. So she lies quiet, eyes fixed on the ceiling, counting the patterns in the plaster, clinging to scraps of memory. A laugh, a touch, sunlight on skin. Anything to survive the weight of this act. Serena's face remains turned away, lips pressed tightly together. The wife must bear this humiliation as ritual, forced to watch her husband with another woman, to witness her own exclusion. Offred can feel her loathing like heat radiating from her body. The ceremony is cruelty distributed equally yet differently, each participant locked in their own prison. When it is over, the silence is thicker than before. The commander withdraws, his face unreadable, his authority untouched. Serena adjusts her gown with stiff hands, her movements betraying a pain she refuses to speak aloud. Offred rises, careful, quiet, her heart steady not from calm but from practice. She knows how to be invisible, how to mask her soul in obedience. Back in her room, she strips the crimson fabric from her body, folds it neatly as required. But her mind is not neat. Her thoughts churn. She recalls how once intimacy had meaning, how once bodies moved with love, not under orders. She remembers Luke's warmth, the way passion had once been ordinary, unregulated, human. The ceremony is designed to erase those memories, to make her body belong only to the state. Yet the act has the opposite effect. It makes her memory burn brighter, more urgent. She lies in her bed and listens to the silence of the house. She imagines Serena in her room, bitter tears swallowed in the dark. She imagines the commander in his study, turning pages of books she is forbidden to touch, his mind perhaps elsewhere. And she imagines herself a woman stripped of name and freedom, yet still capable of remembering. That memory itself feels like a rebellion. The ceremony is not about creation. It is about power. It is a reminder that every inch of her body belongs to Gilead, that even the most intimate acts are watched, scripted, and owned. Yet the state cannot control where her thoughts wander. It cannot dictate the images that flash through her mind as she lies still, eyes open in the dark. And so, in the quiet aftermath, Offred clings to the smallest flicker of self, a name unspoken, a face remembered, a love that refuses to vanish. Days pass with the same weight of ritual until something shifts. The commander summons her, not through an aunt, not with Serena's consent, but secretly, breaking the rigid rules of Gilead. Offred is led to his study, a room forbidden to her, a space meant only for men. Crossing that threshold feels like trespassing, and yet she obeys. The study smells of old paper, leather, and tobacco. A world of books stacked on shelves, magazines hidden in drawers, knowledge denied to women. Her heart beats faster. Every object here is contraband to her existence. She lowers her eyes, hands folded, waiting for the punishment she suspects might come. Instead, the commander surprises her. "Let's play," he says, his voice softened. From a drawer, he produces a game board. Scrabble. The sight of it jolts her, the forbidden letters, the potential words spilling from tiles. For her, this is more dangerous than any weapon. Reading and writing have been stripped from women entirely, words outlawed, signs replaced with pictures. To touch letters again is to touch freedom. At first, she hesitates, unsure if this is a trap. But he insists, and slowly she places tiles on the board. The click of each piece feels illicit, thrilling. Simple words take on the weight of rebellion. Faith, love, home. He smiles, watching her, as though this is all amusement for him, a private game. For her, it is far more. It is memory resurrected. He offers her other forbidden things. Magazines from the time before. Glossy pages filled with images of women smiling, laughing, posing in clothes that are now burned or locked away. She flips through them cautiously, her fingers trembling as though touching something sacred. The colors, the words, the freedom in those pages. They sting her with nostalgia, with loss. Their meetings continue in secret, always at night, always in the hush of the study. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they play. The commander seems to crave her company in ways that break the rigid roles Gilead prescribes. He asks her opinion, listens to her words, treats her with a strange sort of intimacy. Not equality, not friendship, something uneven, precarious, and dangerous. For Offred, the meetings are a lifeline and a trap. They give her moments of human connection, fragments of herself she thought erased. She feels the thrill of being seen, spoken to, acknowledged as more than a vessel. Yet she also knows the peril. If discovered, the consequences would be swift, brutal. Death would be mercy compared to the fate awaiting her. She wonders what drives him. Is it loneliness, boredom, guilt? Does he seek rebellion or simply novelty? His motives remain obscured, his authority intact. She cannot forget that he is still the man who owns her, the man whose signature could condemn her. And yet she begins to feel the strange pull of their secret world, the way it blurs boundaries between dominance and companionship. One night after a game, he leans closer, lowering his voice. "I want you to kiss me," he says. Not as part of a ceremony, not as duty, but as something else, something forbidden. She obeys, but inside she trembles. The kiss feels hollow, commanded yet personal, tender yet poisoned by power. She pulls back, her heart heavy with confusion. In that moment, she realizes the complexity of survival in Gilead. Resistance does not always look like open defiance. Sometimes it is compliance with hidden meanings, silence filled with secret thought. Sometimes it is playing Scrabble in a forbidden study, letting words rise like sparks against the darkness. She leaves the room quietly that night, slipping back into the silence of her chamber. But her mind burns with letters, words, fragments of a self that refuses to vanish. For the first time in a long time, she feels the dangerous pulse of possibility. Morning light slants across the pavement as Offred steps outside, crimson dress brushing against her legs. These walks are part of her routine. Errands to the market, always in pairs, always under the eyes of guardians. Today, her companion is Offred, the other handmaid assigned to her route. At first, they exchange only ritual greetings. "Blessed be the fruit. May the Lord open." Their words are hollow but necessary, each phrase a shield. Yet beneath the ritual, something shifts. Offred's voice drops low, softer than usual, her eyes darting to the guards before turning back. "There's more than one way to live," she whispers. Offred freezes. Any word spoken outside the script is dangerous. Her heart beats fast, unsure if this is a test, a trap, or an opening. They continue walking. Offred takes care to maintain the appearance of normalcy, her body language calm, her bonnet tilted downward. She speaks again, voice nearly swallowed by the sound of footsteps on stone. "There's a network. Mayday." The word feels electric, forbidden. A code, a rebellion hidden beneath the quiet streets of Gilead. Offred listens, her breath shallow. She wants to ask questions, but fear grips her throat. The wall looms in the distance, bodies hanging in warning, their faces covered, their crimes painted in symbols. To speak openly is to risk becoming one of them. And yet curiosity claws at her. "Is it real?" she finally whispers. Offred's eyes meet hers, steady, resolute. Yes, in that moment something awakens in Offred. She has spent so long surviving through silence, through obedience, through memory. Now there is the faintest glimpse of another possibility. Connection. Resistance. Hope. Mayday. A word that feels like a lifeline thrown across a vast abyss. Their walks take on a new weight. Outwardly, they are two red-robed women moving silently past shops marked with painted signs. Guardians stationed at corners. Inwardly, they are conspirators, slipping pieces of truth between ritual words. Offred reveals fragments, whispers of safe houses, secret gatherings, names passed quietly. Each detail is both gift and burden. Offred absorbs them with caution, knowing knowledge itself can kill. Back at the commander's house, she feels the tension of dual lives. At night, she plays Scrabble in the study, touching letters like stolen treasures. By day, she walks with Offred, learning the edges of rebellion. Between them, she lives the role Gilead assigns. Silent, obedient, faceless. Each role contradicts the other, yet all are necessary for survival. Sometimes she questions whether Offred can be trusted. Paranoia is bred into her bones. The state encourages betrayal. Neighbors report neighbors, wives report handmaids. The threat of eyes, the secret police, hovers always, unseen but everywhere. A word whispered could be a trap. A smile could be surveillance. Offred studies Offred's face, searching for signs of sincerity, for cracks in the mask. What she finds instead is courage disguised as caution. The more they walk together, the more Offred realizes how deeply Gilead fears women's unity. Ritual greetings and paired walks are meant to control, to turn companionship into surveillance. Yet here, in the smallest whispers, companionship becomes rebellion. A flicker of solidarity, a reminder that she is not entirely alone. At night, she lies awake in her narrow bed, repeating the word in her mind. Mayday. It feels dangerous on her tongue, even unspoken. But it also feels alive, a seed buried deep within her that no regime can uproot. The state has taken her name, her child, her freedom. Yet in these small, whispered moments with Offred, she senses something the state cannot take. The possibility of resistance, fragile but real. For the first time in too long, hope breathes quietly in the dark, quietly in the dark, quietly in the dark. The commander's secret invitations escalate. One evening, after their usual game of Scrabble, his voice lowers, conspiratorial. "I want to show you something," he says. His hand lingers near hers, the weight of his authority pressing into the simple gesture. Offred hesitates, instinct warning her of danger. Yet refusal is impossible. Obedience is survival. She nods. Later, he arranges a clandestine trip. A guardian drives them through Gilead streets under cover of night. Offred sits in the back, bonnet hiding her face, pulse racing. Every shadow could be an eye, every checkpoint an end. The commander seems relaxed, even smug, as though this is a game to him. To her it is peril. The car stops before a guarded building. Music hums faintly inside, music lively and forbidden. The commander escorts her through the doors, and what she sees feels like a hallucination. Women dressed in glittering costumes, sequins catching the dim light, feathers brushing against bare skin. Makeup smeared bold across faces, they laugh, they serve drinks, they dance. It is a grotesque echo of the world before, preserved in secret for the pleasure of the powerful. This place is Jezebel's, a brothel disguised as a club, sanctioned for commanders and elite men. Women who vanish from the streets reappear here, trapped in gaudy performances, forced into roles that parody freedom. Offred watches them with a mixture of disbelief and horror. She recognizes some faces, the women she thought erased, now resurrected in this twisted form. The commander parades her through the crowd, proud of his possession. Men nod to him, some with recognition, some with envy. Offred feels herself burn with shame, yet also with rage. She is no longer invisible. Here she is displayed, flaunted, stripped of the anonymity that once protected her. In a corner, another face emerges from the haze. Moira, her friend from the time before. Moira, who once radiated defiance, who had escaped the Red Center with daring and courage. Offred's heart leaps at the sight of her. She seizes a moment to speak, and Moira's voice, low and sharp, cuts through the noise. She tells Offred how she was captured, how rebellion turned to punishment, how she was forced into this place. Her words are steady, but behind them is exhaustion, the dull edge of defeat. "Don't look for fairy tales," she warns. "This is what happens when you fight." The sight of Moira in sequins instead of defiance wounds Offred deeply. Hope falters in her chest. The commander leads her upstairs, away from the glitter and noise, to a private room. The walls are draped in fabric, the bed too large, the air thick with perfume. He touches her gently, speaking as though this is intimacy, as though he offers her something special. But Offred knows this is no gift. It is another form of possession, dressed in velvet instead of law. She complies because refusal would be ruin. Inside, she is numb. When it is over, he smiles, satisfied, while she feels the hollowness deepen. Jezebel's has shown her the truth of Gilead more starkly than the wall ever could. Beneath the rigid surface of piety lies hypocrisy, indulgence, corruption. The rules are chains only for the powerless, For the powerful, rules are costumes to be shed at will. On the drive back, silence fills the car. Offred stares out the window, watching the shadows of Gilead pass by. She feels the weight of Moira's warning, the echo of laughter from Jezebel's, the commander's touch still heavy on her skin. Her world has narrowed into paradox. Even in rebellion she is trapped, even in survival she is diminished. And yet somewhere deep within, the memory of Moira lingers. Not just the woman she saw tonight, weary and broken, but the friend she remembers, the one who fought, who dared. That memory, too, refuses to vanish. The night after Jezebel's, the air inside the commander's house feels heavier than ever. Offred moves through the rooms with mechanical obedience, but her mind races. She replays Moira's words, her defeated expression, the gaudy lights of that forbidden club. The hypocrisy of Gilead has been laid bare, a regime that preaches purity while indulging in secret corruption. Yet it is not revelation that shakes Offred most, but what awaits her next. One afternoon, Serena Joy calls her into the garden. The wife sits among flowers she cannot tend, knitting needles at rest in her lap. Her voice is clipped, her tone sharp, but beneath it something like desperation trembles. "The commander isn't enough," she says. Her eyes narrow on Offred, piercing. "If you want a child, if you want to stay alive, you'll do as I say." She gestures toward Nick, the household chauffeur. Young, quiet, with eyes that linger but reveal nothing. Serena's words slice the air. "Try with him." It is not a suggestion. It is an order, delivered from one woman stripped of power to another. An act of survival twisted by humiliation. Offred's heart clenches. She knows the danger. To lie with a man outside the ceremony is forbidden, punishable by death. Yet Serena frames it as necessity, even kindness. She presses into Offred's hand a cigarette, a token from the time before, contraband glowing with promise. A bribe, a gesture of control. Offred understands. In this world, even intimacy is bartered. That night, she enters Nick's room. The air is close, the shadows deep. She stands in the doorway, trembling, every nerve aware of the risk. Nick rises, eyes steady, his presence calm but charged with tension. Their first touch is awkward, born of desperation rather than desire. Yet as moments stretch, the awkwardness shifts. Their bodies speak a language forbidden but unmistakable, a language of need, of humanity clawing through silence. For Offred, it is unlike the ceremony. With the commander, her body is an instrument, a vessel. With Nick, there is heat, closeness, a spark that feels reckless, alive. She feels the walls of Gilead blur just for an instant, as though beyond them freedom still exists. When his hand lingers, when his breath brushes her skin, she realizes she is not only obeying Serena's demand, she is reclaiming a fragment of herself. The next nights, she returns. At first because she must, then because she wants to. Their encounters are stolen, dangerous, yet they grow tender, even urgent. She lies beside him afterward, listening to the rhythm of his breath, savoring the forbidden comfort. She knows this is perilous. Desire is rebellion, intimacy is rebellion, even hope itself is rebellion, yet she cannot stop. Serena pretends ignorance, her bitterness masked by the pretense of strategy. The commander remains unaware, distracted by his own secret games, and Offred, caught between them, learns to live in contradictions. Obedient handmaid by day, secret lover by night, but beneath the sweetness of these encounters lies fear. She knows what happens to those who are caught. She has seen bodies hanging on the wall, women accused of adultery, of betrayal, their crimes painted on signs around their necks. Love in Gilead is punishable by death, and yet she risks it anyway. She risks, because in Nick's arms, for the first time since her world collapsed, she feels something dangerously close to freedom. The nights with Nick become her secret sanctuary. Each time she slips into his room, her pulse quickens with fear and anticipation. The two braided so tightly they are inseparable. What began as Serena's command grows into something else, something Offred can no longer deny. In Nick's arms she feels warmth, not ritual, breath, not law. The world narrows to touch, to closeness, to the dangerous miracle of feeling human again. She tells herself she should resist. That attachment is peril. Yet her heart betrays her. Nick's presence draws her out of the numb silence she has cultivated to survive. With him, she does not feel like a vessel, a red silhouette moving through Gilead's machine. With him, she remembers her own body, her own voice. He asks nothing of her but herself. Days blur differently now. She walks to the market with Offred, ritual phrases exchanged under the eyes of guardians, yet her thoughts drift back to Nick. The contrast sharpens everything. The lifeless streets of Gilead against the private fire she feels at night. She senses how precarious it all is. If discovered, she will not only die, she will be displayed, a warning on the wall. And yet the risk no longer outweighs the need. Nick becomes her anchor. She clings to him with the desperation of someone who has lost everything else. Her husband, her child, her name. His touch is not Luke's, his face not the one she once loved, but he is here. Tangible. Real. In the dark, she whispers fragments of herself she cannot speak aloud anywhere else. He listens without judgment, and though words are scarce, the silence between them feels less oppressive than the silence of the commander's house. She does not know if it is love, not in the way she once understood love, with shared mornings and whispered plans for the future. But it is something close, closeness born of danger, of scarcity, of forbidden need. It fills her with guilt and hope in equal measure. Even Serena in her bitterness cannot erase this secret. Her command created the spark, but she cannot control the fire it has become. The commander remains oblivious, still summoning Offred to Scrabble, to magazines, to secret indulgences, believing he is the only one who holds her in his grasp. Neither of them knows that Nick has already claimed a piece of her that cannot be taken back. And yet, as sweet as these moments are, they are also heavy with dread. Offred knows joy is dangerous here. Gilead punishes joy, strips it from life until even small pleasures feel subversive. Every kiss is a risk, every touch a crime. Still, she returns to him again and again because without him the silence would consume her entirely. In Nick's embrace, she rediscovers something she thought lost forever. The belief that she can still choose, even in the smallest way. To choose him, to choose closeness, to choose feeling. It is rebellion, and rebellion, even in the quietest form, is hope. The days grow heavier, as though Gilead itself senses something is shifting beneath the surface. On the streets, guardians stand stiffer, eyes sharper. At the wall, the bodies swing more frequently, the symbols on their placards harsher. Reminders carved in silence. Do not step out of line. Offred notices changes in her companion too. Offred, once cautious but steady, now walks with an urgency she cannot conceal. Their ritual greetings still pass their lips, but beneath them pulse words of warning. Whispers of Mayday grow sharper. The danger's closer. There are eyes everywhere, Offred murmurs one day, glancing at a guardian who lingers too long. We must be careful. Then suddenly Offred is gone, replaced. The woman beside Offred at the market wears the same red robe, the same white wings shielding her face, but she is not the same. Her eyes are blank, her voice empty. When Offred tests the waters, speaking softly, the woman offers nothing but ritual phrases, her tone flat as stone. Fear floods Offred's veins. Offred has vanished. Whether captured, killed, or in hiding, she cannot know. The new partner's silence is suffocating. Her presence a reminder that surveillance is not only in cameras and guards, but in the bodies standing beside you. Offred feels the walls of Gilead pressing closer, the small cracks she once found shrinking shut. She longs for Offglen's whispered courage, for the faint thread of resistance they had woven together. Now that thread has been cut. Back in the commander's house, paranoia grows. Every creak of the floorboard sounds like pursuit, every shadow on the wall like an eye. Even her visits to Nick's room, once filled with stolen warmth, now feel perilous. She clings to him all the more, desperate not only for touch but for reassurance that she is still alive, still unseen. His quiet presence steadies her, but it cannot erase the gnawing dread. News filters in, not openly but through fragments, whispers from Martha's, snippets overheard at checkpoints. Executions have multiplied. The eyes are everywhere, rooting out dissent with brutal efficiency. Mayday is in danger, its network unraveling under the state's grip. At night, Offred lies awake in her narrow bed, heart pounding at every sound beyond her door. The commander's study no longer feels like a secret haven but a trap, a game she cannot stop playing. Serena's bitterness sharpens with every failed ceremony, her hostility thick as smoke in the house. Even Nick, with all his warmth, cannot shield her from the truth. The net is tightening, and escape feels less possible each day. The world she lives in is one of masks. The commander wears the mask of benevolence in their games. Serena wears the mask of obedience, her fury hidden behind needles and yarn. The new Offglen wears the mask of compliance, her silence a weapon. Offred herself wears masks upon masks, hiding fragments of rebellion, desire, memory. But masks can crack, and she feels hers beginning to splinter under the pressure. The regime has stripped away her name, her freedom, her family. It has demanded her silence, her obedience, her very body. And yet somewhere within, the memory of Offglen's whispers remains. Mayday. The word still beats like a secret pulse, even as the shadows close in. Night falls with a suffocating stillness. The air inside the commander's house feels brittle, as though even the walls are listening. Offred moves carefully, her body attuned to the smallest sound, the slightest change in routine. Something is coming. Then it happens. Black vans roll up to the house, their engines low and heavy, doors sliding open with mechanical finality. The eyes. Or perhaps not. No one ever knows until it is too late. Boots strike the pavement, a knock rattles the door, voices demand entry. The household freezes. Serena Joy's needles clatter to the floor, her face pale with fury and fear. The commander fumbles with words, his authority stripped bare by the intrusion. They come for Offred. Guardians step forward, their faces unreadable, their grip firm but not brutal. She stands trembling, mind racing. Is this her end? Will she hang on the wall by morning, a sign around her neck declaring crimes she never confessed? Or is this something else? Mayday's hand reaching through the darkness at last. Serena's voice rises, shrill, broken. What did you do? She spits, rage and betrayal twisting her words. The commander tries to intervene to assert control, but his protests sound hollow, powerless. For once, his authority means nothing. Offred feels the eyes of them all upon her, judging, condemning, pleading. Inside her chest, fear and hope collide. She thinks of Luke, alive or dead she does not know. She thinks of her daughter, stolen from her arms, growing up somewhere under another name. She thinks of Nick, his quiet steadiness, the possibility of love in a loveless world. She thinks of Moira, of Offglen, of every whisper that carried rebellion like a spark in the dark. They lead her toward the van. Every step is a chasm. Behind her, Serena collapses into fury, the commander into silence. Ahead of her, the door yawns open, darkness waiting. Guardians do not explain. They never do. The question sears through her mind. Rescue or ruin, arrest or escape. The line is invisible, the outcome unknowable. She climbs inside. The doors slam shut. The engine rumbles and the van pulls away. In the suffocating dark, Offred breathes. She does not know where she is going, what fate awaits her. But she knows this. Her story is not finished. Story is not finished.